Welcome to our program, Tell Your Story, that is brought to you by Zimbabwe Academy of Excellence in conjunction with Zpra Veterans Association. These personal stories demonstrate the contribution of Zpra to the liberation struggle with the intention of arousing a patriotic inspiration to the economic liberation of Zimbabwe. We would like to acknowledge the support from the Atlantic Fellowship for Racial Equity.
A very good afternoon to you all, our valued listeners. My name is Caroline Ncube. I'm going to bring the program to you today, a program that is brought to you by Zimbabwe Academy of Excellence in conjunction with a Zpra Veterans Association. So we're going to be having our podcasting session today, this afternoon, with our very honorable Mr. Nyathi. Mr. Nyathi, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon. And good afternoon to listeners.
Okay, it is a pleasure to have you, sir, today in our podcasting session. How have you been?
I've been all right, and I think I will immediately jump into the how I grew up and where I was born. I was born in Cholocho.
Okay, so that was just going to be my question, that you may just give us a brief background about yourself, please.
Yes, I was born in Cholocho. I grew up there. I went to school there.
Okay.
And just like all other boys, I grew up looking after cattle, and got therefore the influence from different sections of the population and the people and the surrounding and the environment. But I must immediately say that I must kind of state from the onset that in 1990 I wrote a kind of a biography about myself.
Okay.
So I wouldn't want to repeat that. That can be read in my book, but what I want to talk to today is a bit of an expansion and deepening of the different aspects of my growth.
Okay, maybe just in case for the listeners that would be much more wanting to hear about your book, or just would want to get to know more about your biography. What is your book called, Mr. Nyathi?
My book is called Tomorrow is Built Today.
Tomorrow is Built Today. Wonderful. So, okay, you may continue, please.
So I want to say that like all other boys, I got influenced from different directions.
Yes.
And I want to mention very particularly that in the political field, I got influenced by my uncle Makati Gutuza, who got involved with the ANC in South Africa.
Oh, okay.
Very much, and also is the kind of the person who actually was one of the people who brought the political influence into Zimbabwe. And also I was influenced by the fact that my neighbors, there was a neighbor, Mr. Ngwenya, who had a son who had joined the liberation struggle, and that also got people, got the society, got the community around talking. And also, of course, the school, and also the general conditions really forced us to be involved as young people into the politics. So I would then say, as a young boy growing up, looking after cattle, then you don't know what is a town, you don't know what is a city, and then you want to go to school, and then you have to find means of raising money. And the means of raising money then was for me to sell firewood.
To sell firewood.
Cut firewood and take firewood to Bulawayo to go and sell, so that one could be able to raise money to pay school fees, to also raise money for clothing.
For clothing. Okay. Yes. With all this that you mentioned, I know you mentioned quite a bit also about ANC there. We just want to find out from you, Mr. Nyathi, what made you to leave your home to join the struggle? Many people do have their own challenges. They do have their own things that they would like to share. And say maybe it's because of particular reasons, it's because of other things. But for you, we just want to know what motivated you, what inspired you to say, okay, finally, we are now arising to go and join the struggle. What made you to leave your home to join the struggle, Mr. Nyathi?
Firstly, I was the youth chairman in Bulawayo. In the branch was Popo Manjwe Matogana.
Okay.
So as the youth chair, I got involved in the politics. It was the politics of the ANC. Then the ANC was led by Abel Mzorewa and others, Edson Stole and others. So, and there was really a lot of talk about joining the liberation struggle because of the intransigence of the white people who were refusing to share power with the black majority.
Okay.
So I became very active and also became, if you like, in the eyes of the regime, notorious for doing things which were against, say, the rules. But then I had to survive. I looked for employment, and I was working in a factory which was called Monis Wineries. Then but the talk about politics intensified, even at the factories. There, eventually, I joined the trade union and became a representative of the workers. And okay. It took me very little time. I was actually became elected as the representative, and I worked with a very known trade unionist. He was Mr. Nedziwe, and so we worked in Bulawayo, organizing the workers and so on. Obviously, the organizing the workers involved organizing people also for politics. Let me say the trade union was really basically the school for political formations.
Okay.
And therefore, I got involved in the political party which was called the ANC then. And then, like I said before, I found myself crossing the rules of the regime. Then, at some stage in the early 70s, I got arrested and then imprisoned. I was sent to Kame prison. I was in Kame prison for the whole year. And then, when I came out, I had met other people in the Kame prison, and this resolve of wanting to fight the regime became even more intensified and became much stronger. When I was out of prison,
yes.
And then it was very clear to my mind and to many of my colleagues that I had to be out of the country as well.
Out of the country. Okay, maybe before we can go on there, Ms. Net, I would like to understand when you say the rules of the regime, can you maybe please just give us an example of the rules of the regime that you're talking about so that our listeners can have an idea of what you're speaking about?
Right. If take for example,
yes.
If you were a black man and you worked exactly the same job with a white man,
yes.
you would earn differently. You would earn less.
Earn less, but doing the same type of job.
But doing the same type of job.
Okay.
If you were a woman, it was worse. You were going to get even less. Otherwise, you were not allowed to work, okay. And you were not even allowed to have an identity as a woman.
Okay.
There are many things which were racialistic in nature. So, and that is what we wanted, what we were fighting about. were fighting the system of the white men wanting to exclude the black people in the activities and actions which were taking place in the country. So, and the black people were not part of the or part of making the rules. So therefore these rules, if the rules and laws were made by the white people, but meant for black people. I read a book which was called Muntu and His Ways. This was a way of, this book taught the children of the white people that the needs of black people are few and simple, and they really don't matter. So you don't need to pay them good money. So remember, I said I was involved in the trade union fighting for better wage conditions.
Yes, that you mentioned, yes.
So, but obviously it became more and more clear that the only way was to actually fight, to escalate the battles to political battles. So, and then I organized with other people, other comrades from Chirezi, Harare, Rukare. I went with people like Ishmael Kabaira and many others. I think we were 7. We then crossed to Botswana. When we were in Botswana, we were received by the security forces of Botswana, and then we were taken to the refugee camp. At the refugee camp, we stayed there and waited to be given our chance. Like everybody else, we got our chance, got into the plane for the first time, went to Zambia. And went into Zambia. We were received by the comrades there and started to prepare for our training. And I think our team or our group was, I think it was a group of 1,200. I think we were 1,200 when we were training, and we trained in CGT 1.
Okay.
When we trained there for I think 9 months, and after our training, I was selected to be one of the people who would go for further training in GDR, which is Germany.
Okay.
So I went to train as a political commissar.
So when you speak of Germany and the training that you mentioned in your political education and everything else, how long did this last? How long did your political training and political education last?
It took me about 1 year.
1 year.
1 year training. I would sit in the bench and every day talk, get my mind trained in the politics of different countries, different angles and different stages, mode of production, to understand how politics form up and so on, and how we will be able to run the country from a political angle.
Okay, so after your political education, which area were you then deployed to?
So I came back to Zambia and then got deployed in BL1, which is the northern part of Zimbabwe, which was the northern part of Zimbabwe. We called that Operation BL1.
Okay. Was there a specific reason why it was called BL1? Because
it was the code name for our operational area.
Okay.
So our operational area was called BL1. So which means from Kuruve all the way to Gokwe was all BL1.
Okay.
And then, and my business really there was to both speak for the comrades so that they would be able to get the support from the masses, but also speak to the masses to make the masses understand why we were fighting what the battles were all about, and why we needed to change the system and remove the government, of Smith.
Okay.
So I think we were there. I was with great leaders like Savanu, Makarasadza, Mataure, and many others. We were there, and particularly our key area was Wurungwe, where I was operating from. So we were operating there, and we really managed to push the enemy out of our area where we were operating from. We became one of the first liberated zones during the struggle.
Okay.
So I think many people know what happened in Wurungwe. Many things happened.
Okay. So when you mentioned that many battles happen, you do have a memorable incident or occasion that you still remember. If you may please just give us details on that. Just give us any memorable battle that you still remember.
Yes, I think that is important. But let me just say that when there was an incident or a battle of in Katsema, where we had managed to attack the base for the enemy.
Okay.
And actually got rid of them. We established one of the longest ambushes, and it took us 3 days to actually get rid of the enemy. We destroyed the enemy envoy, and I think that is one of
the memorable battle of the 3 days.
Battles, but there's really too many which we were doing there.
Okay, all right. And then, so from your days as a freedom fighter, training and battles to independence, then, like up to date, what message do you have for the young generation?
Before I get there, let me say that because as Zpra we were really succeeding,
yes.
And we had arrived at a point where we were calling it the turning point. So the turning point meant that we were now bringing into the country the regular forces, which were now going to defend what we had actually captured,
yes.
or the areas which we had captured. So we wanted now to start defending them. And this prompted the regime and the British to call for a ceasefire, and they called for discussions and so on in Lancaster House. And eventually there was a ceasefire in 1979, where we were then asked to go to the assembly points, and my assembly point was Makurekure in Wurungwe.
Yes.
And of course we had other assembly points like Papa and so on, which were part of the area of the northern operation. So when we gathered at the assembly points, obviously the regime was not happy with us. They continued to want to belittle us, and they tried to come to our place, and I think we showed them red, and that is when Lord Soames and the leadership of the political leadership and the Zpra leadership came to us to come and ask us to observe the ceasefire conditions, but we had made sure that the regime forces saw the red and they never came back because they wanted to patrol around us, and we said no, we can do those things by ourselves. That is why we broke the ceasefire in a very stylish way.
In a stylish way, you say, okay.
So then after that, they were not comfortable with us because they knew that we were the strongest side of the guerrillas.
Yes.
So then they wanted us to go into town. So we eventually moved to Chitungwiza, where we stayed there, and we stayed together with the Zala forces, but we were separated. Our camps were just separated by wire. Eventually, we were moved to Kwai River Mine, and then at some stage, we got then demobilized. Some of us never went into the army, but a lot of the guerrillas went into the army. But there were also problems there. But myself, as a trained cadre in the politics, I was part of the group of people who were supposed to spearhead SEED. SEED was the establishment of production units, which was called soldiers in production. So we were establishing production units which would then help to assist to feed the country, but also bring in a new system of production, because the mode of production which was prevailing was serving a minority. So we wanted a mode of production which would be able to serve more people. And at that time, we also, I managed to establish a cooperative which was called Simugai Cooperative, which was in Harare, or let me say in Mashonaland East.
A Simukai Cooperative?
Yeah, Simugai Collective Cooperative.
Okay.
It was in Chiwota, in Seke. And it became one of the biggest cooperatives in Southern Africa. And from there we established even CSFS, which was the financing cooperation by ourselves. We also established our own OXIM, which was the organization of different cooperatives throughout the country, and I was one of the leaders of that who did that. So unfortunately, the government was not prepared to support the new direction, the new production units, the new cooperatives. The government was not able.
What makes you to say that the government wasn't supportive?
It was not supportive. So, but despite that, we became very successful in our own ways. But obviously, we struggled 10 times more than just establishing the normal cooperative farms. And for example, we were running that farm, and that farm was 1,760 hectares, and we had 600 cattle there, and we had 10,000 chicken and so on, and we were selling, and we were feeding we're selling our products to hotels, to restaurants, to people, to places, to schools, and so on.
Okay.
So, and we even established our own school there. So it was very, very successful. However, because we were swimming against the trend and the government was not supportive, eventually the back of the camel broke, and the cooperative could not sustain the lives of the members. And then the members started to move out of the cooperative to look for greener pastures, and also the economy of the country was also collapsing, and so we could not be able to sustain that. And it is bad that today, again, we are refugees, economic refugees in other countries throughout the world, and this is bad. And therefore, as the word which as a word of encouragement, which I want to put across, is that we have established Zimbabwe Academy of Excellence as a vehicle to carry the message forward, to say that what we struggled for was the establishment of a system of production which accommodated or which allowed everybody to participate. We would like to see Zimbabweans as a whole participate in the economy of Zimbabwe, and we would like to see a situation where young Zimbabweans are able to acquire skills, and that is why we have established this school or this Academy of Excellence, so that people can be able to find themselves, find their own confidence, find confidence in themselves by actually telling their own stories, and after telling their own stories, they get inspired and then combine those stories to be able to tell a bigger story and have a better resolve as a community, as a group, as a sector, to say this is what we want to be able to do. Thirdly, we want to be able to then clarify for the people to know the workings of the politics, of the social relationships, and also the economic relationships which we are born into, and so that as Zimbabweans and also as the youth, we can be able to say we were born into these socio-economic, political relationships, but we can be able to change them so that they can favor our own lives. And then on top of that, we would like, therefore, to also train people, to upskill people so that people can get the skills which will be able to sustain them, which will be able to get them going to run the economic units. The problem which we're facing in Zimbabwe, in Africa, and in our own villages is that we are unable to run our own production system. So therefore, the sustenance of our own lives, which should depend on production, is going to be very much based on our own ability and mastery of production units. Okay. And beyond that, we need, therefore, to make these units, to make our system of production a success and be acceptable, and get the universities to be able to adopt new ways of running the economy. Because at the present moment, we depend on the pyramid system of economy. And therefore, this excludes a lot of people. So, yet, it is important to democratize and participate and make people participate in the economy, because that's the only way which can guarantee better lives for all Zimbabweans. And so the young people, my message to them would be, imagine, when you have imagined, act on that imagination, you will be able to bring a new future, because what you have found or what you are born into does not necessarily mean that it cannot be changed. It can be changed. We can change the social relations, the production relations, and the political relations of in our country, so that our lives can be better and we have better standards of living for everybody.
For everyone, okay. Just one last quick question, Mr. Nyathi, before I can close the interview. I see that you mentioned that you grew up in Cholocho, but all the political training and all the fighting that you've mentioned, it was all done in Mashonaland, And looking at one of the things that some of the Zimbabweans mentioned, we do have encountered tribalism here and there. Maybe just one last word of advice as well, or maybe one last anything that you want to say concerning tribalism that is also affecting our nation, please.
Let me put it this way.
Yes.
The problem of tribalism is a deliberate disease which is planted by people who want to see divisions amongst people.
Okay.
It doesn't help. You don't get anything by a tribal identity. You don't get anything. There's no improvement in your life. There's nothing. And I have never considered myself as working, let's say, in Mashonaland. I work in Zimbabwe. Okay. And I live in Zimbabwe. That's all. That's where I am. When I am in Mtare, I'm in Zimbabwe. When I'm in Plumtree, I'm in Zimbabwe. There's no area in Zimbabwe which is more Zimbabwe than another. Every other Zimbabwe area is equal to the other. So that is important. So as for people, the problem which we face is that people don't know what is a nation. A nation is not limited to language. A nation is not limited to geography. A nation is fundamentally based on the willingness to work together. If you have a pillar in your heart which says we must work together, then that's where the nation starts. Because if we don't want to work together, there is no nation. You can have the same language, you can have the same complexion, you can have the same size of people, you can have the same of everything, you can have the same area, but if you don't have the understanding and the willingness to be able to hold hands and take your country forward, you will not. So that is what is more important. So I think for me, I have gone past that. I don't even see myself in any tribal identity of any kind. So if I want to go to Plumtree, I go to Plumtree and sit there and do whatever I'm doing. And in fact, if you actually, anyone who has followed my works, you will see that if you go at the new complex there, that building which is called Oxim building in Bulawayo,
yes.
I was one of the key people who participated in the construction of that. You can go to Plumtree, you'll find where my footprints there. If you go to Marondela, the tallest building in Marondela, Monstrat, I was the chairman in Mashonaland East, and I participated in building that. And I have done so many things in Zimbabwe for different people. And my way of looking at my people is that my people are all one. And
wow, we would like to thank you very much, Mr. Nyathi, for the time that you've had with us today, sharing your lived experiences and the message to the young generation. And I hope you've had it today. Like he said, his last words were, imagine it, and act and bring a new future. That was the message to the young generation. Please take notes on that and do have a nice day and do enjoy the rest of your day. Siyabonga kakhulu Baba Nyathi ngamazwi aqotho osinikeze wona namhlanje. In Shona they say nemashoko makhukutu tinotenda baba, and be blessed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.